The broken tray, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the quiet restaurant like a thunderclap. Every head turned. Silence gripped the air. For a moment, everything stopped. A young man stood frozen near table 4, his face pale, his hands trembling. Around his feet lay a tray, broken plates, and spilled soup. Hot liquid spread like a dark stain across the white tiles. The waiter's eyes widened in horror. His name was Rami. He bent quickly to clean the mess, his fingers slipping in the soup. Someone at the table scoffed loudly. "You should be washing cars, not serving food," the man at the table muttered, nudging his wife, who tried to hide a smirk. Rami didn't respond. He just nodded, apologizing softly. He had learned long ago that replying only made things worse. This wasn't the first time someone had insulted him. He was used to it. Too used to it. But that night the shame felt heavier. Rami's manager, a tall balding man with sharp eyes named Daniels, stormed out of the kitchen. "What did I tell you, Rami? No more mistakes. This is your 3rd warning." "I'm sorry," Rami whispered, looking down. "Get it cleaned up, and meet me in my office after your shift," Daniels barked before storming back. Rami nodded again. He couldn't afford to lose this job. He needed it more than air. After midnight, the restaurant emptied out. Chairs were stacked, lights dimmed, and a soft hum of the dishwasher filled the kitchen. Rami, now in the back, washed the last few dishes. His hands were raw, his back ached. But worse than all of it was the weight in his chest. He dried his hands and made his way to Daniel's office, heart pounding. Outside the door he paused, took a breath, knocked twice. "Come in," came the voice. Rami stepped inside. "Look," Daniel said, leaning forward. "You're a nice kid, I get it. Life's tough. But this is a business, not a charity. You dropped a tray on a celebrity guest tonight." "Celebrity?" Rami asked, confused. Daniels raised an eyebrow. "You didn't recognize him?" Rami shook his head. "That was Keanu Reeves," Daniel said slowly, like the name should mean everything. Rami's mouth opened slightly. "Oh, I didn't know." "Well, he was surprisingly calm about it," Daniel said. "But it doesn't matter. The damage is done. And Rami, this is your last shift. I'm sorry." Rami stood still. The words pierced his chest like icy needles. He felt like the floor had vanished under him. He wanted to argue, to beg, but he had too much pride left for that. Or maybe he just felt too broken to speak. He nodded. "Thank you for the opportunity." He walked out. Every step heavier than the last. The alley behind the restaurant was cold. Rami leaned against the brick wall, looking up at the night sky. The stars blinked quietly. He thought about his mother back home, probably asleep. She didn't know he was fired. Not yet. She always believed in him. Said he was meant for something bigger. He didn't have the heart to tell her that he wasn't. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten anything since morning. Just then a car rolled up, a sleek black one. The window slid down. "You okay?" A calm voice called out. Rami blinked. It was him, the man from table 4, the one he had spilled soup on. Keanu Reeves. "I'm fine," Rami said quietly. "You look like someone who's not fine," Keanu said, stepping out of the car. Rami stood up straighter. "Sorry again for earlier. I didn't mean to." "It's okay," Keanu said. "Accidents happen. You handled it better than most people would. I've seen people lose it over less." Rami looked surprised. "Thank you." Keanu nodded toward the alley. "You live nearby?" Rami shook his head. "Not really. I take the night bus to the other side of town." Keanu tilted his head. "Can I give you a ride?" Rami hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I wouldn't offer if I wasn't," Keanu said gently. Inside the car, they sat quietly at first. Soft music played. Rami didn't know what to say. He couldn't believe what was happening. Was this real? Keanu finally spoke. "What's your story, Rami?" Rami took a breath. "I came here 6 months ago with my mother. She's sick. We needed better treatment. I've been working to pay rent and medicine. Today was just bad." What did you want to do before all this? Keanu asked. Rami smiled weakly. I wanted to draw portraits. I love sketching people. But dreams don't pay bills. So I put that away. Keanu was quiet for a moment. Sometimes dreams are the only thing worth holding on to. They pulled up to a small apartment block. Rami got out and turned to him. Thank you. For the ride. For being kind. Keanu looked at him closely. Can you come to this address tomorrow morning? He handed Rami a small card. Rami looked at it. It was simple. Just a location in the city. What is it? He asked. Just show up, Keanu said. And bring your sketchbook. Before Rami could ask more, the car pulled away, leaving him in the cold night with a card, a heart full of confusion, and a small flicker of hope. The next morning, Rami stood outside the building on the card. It was a quiet studio tucked away in a leafy street. He clutched his old, worn-out sketchbook in one hand. His fingers were shaking. He stepped inside. The receptionist smiled. You must be Rami. Mr. Reeves is expecting you. He was led to a sunlit room filled with canvases, photographs, and film posters. At the center sat Keanu drinking coffee. Hey, Keanu said. You came. Rami nodded, still unsure if this was a dream. Keanu stood. This is my creative space, where I work, meet artists, and explore ideas. I believe in helping people who have something inside them. And you, I think you have something. Rami's voice cracked. I don't understand. I want to offer you a chance, Keanu said. Not a job, a path, an opportunity to grow, to learn, to be around people who believe in what you can become. Rami looked down at his sketchbook, unsure what to say. His hands trembled as he opened it and showed Keanu a drawing. Keanu's eyes widened. You drew this? Rami nodded. Then you're ready? Keanu said. Rami felt something rise in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Belief. The sketch that changed everything. The sunlight poured gently through the wide windows of the studio, casting warm light over the walls filled with creativity. Canvases leaned against each other, photographs of people and places from around the world hung with quiet pride. The air was filled with the faint scent of paint and old books. Rami sat stiffly in a chair, holding his sketchbook with both hands. His fingers trembled just slightly, not from fear but from disbelief. Yesterday he was a fired waiter. Today he was in Keanu Reeves's private creative studio. Keanu sat across from him, sipping his coffee slowly. He leaned forward and pointed at one of Rami's drawings. It was a pencil portrait of an old man sitting on a bench, eyes full of sorrow. You captured something real here, Keanu said softly. This man. I can almost feel what he's thinking. Rami looked down, not knowing how to respond. He wasn't used to praise. Keanu smiled gently. Do you have more? Rami nodded and carefully turned the pages. Sketches of city streets, a child playing with a paper boat in the rain, a woman staring out of a window, all drawn in black pencil but full of feeling. How long have you been drawing like this? Keanu asked. Since I was 7, Rami said. I never had real training. I just copied what I saw and added what I felt. Keanu nodded slowly. That's the best kind of art, the kind that feels instead of just showing. Over the next hour, Keanu introduced Rami to a few people in the building. There was Maya, a photographer with a calm voice and kind eyes, and Emilio, a retired painter who now mentored young artists. This is Rami, Keanu said to each of them. He's not just a guest, he's here to learn. Rami couldn't believe what he was hearing. They welcomed him warmly, treating him not as a failure or a poor boy, but as someone who belonged. Keanu turned to him and said, I know what it's like to struggle in silence. I've been there. Sometimes you just need one person to believe in you. Someone did that for me once. Now I want to do the same. Rami's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Over the next few weeks, Rami became a regular face at the studio. Every morning he would arrive with his sketchbook, wearing the same faded jeans and hoodie. He didn't have much, but he brought everything he had inside. Maya taught him how to use light and shadow to tell deeper stories. Emilio helped him understand movement and emotion in lines. Sometimes, Keanu would sit beside him and just listen, and, slowly, something began to change in Rami. He started to smile more. He walked taller. The bags under his eyes lessened, and one day, when Emilio asked him to draw from memory, Rami picked a moment that lived deep in his heart. He drew his mother, sitting by the window, coughing, looking out at the empty street. Her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. The sunlight catching the edge of her face. It wasn't a grand moment, but it was real. And it was full of love. When Keanu saw the finished drawing, he stared at it for a long time without speaking. "This," he said finally, "is the kind of art that doesn't just hang on walls. It stays in people's hearts." One Friday afternoon, as the studio buzzed with quiet energy, Keanu pulled Rami aside. "I have something to show you," he said. He led him into a separate room, small, cozy, and filled with framed artworks. On a desk sat an open folder with a single letter inside. Rami picked it up carefully and read the heading. "The New Voices Foundation, Young Artist Grant." "I submitted your sketches," Keanu said. "With your permission, of course. I made a copy of your sketchbook. They saw your talent, and they want to sponsor you." Rami stared at him, confused. "What do you mean, sponsor?" "They'll give you a full scholarship to the city's top art school," Keanu said, smiling. "Materials, mentorship, everything." Rami stepped back as if he couldn't breathe. "This can't be real," he whispered. "It is," Keanu replied. "You earned it." "But I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did," Keanu interrupted gently. "You kept going when you had every reason to quit. You shared your truth. That's more than most people ever dare to do." Tears welled up in Rami's eyes. He quickly looked away, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know how to repay you." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "Just promise me one thing. When it's your turn, believe in someone else." That night, Rami returned home and showed the letter to his mother. She read it once, then again, her eyes filled with tears. "I always knew," she whispered. "I always knew you had something special. But now the world knows too." Rami hugged her tightly. For the first time in years, he felt something he had long forgotten. He felt free. A month later, Rami stood at the entrance of the city's most prestigious art school. He wore a clean shirt, his sketchbook in hand. His mother waved from across the street, smiling proudly. Inside, students bustled about, carrying canvases and paintbrushes. Rami found his name on the list and walked into his first class. He was nervous. He was excited. And he was ready. His life, once limited to late-night bus rides and broken trays, had opened like a door into sunlight. And somewhere, deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Because now, he had a future, and someone had believed in him just enough to make it possible. The storm before the spotlight. Rami stood in the hallway of the art school, staring at the tall, white door in front of him. A silver plaque read, "Studio 7, Life, Drawing Class." Voices buzzed softly inside, the sound of laughter and brushes clinking against jars. His fingers gripped the edge of his sketchbook tightly. Even after weeks of being here, it still felt like a dream. He took a breath and stepped in. Inside, students were scattered across the room, each at their easel. The model stood in the center, frozen in pose, while the instructor, Ms. Della, moved, between them adjusting angles, offering soft guidance. Rami quickly took his spot in the back corner. He preferred that space, quiet, hidden. He opened his sketchbook and began. His lines moved gently, confidently. Since arriving, his skills had grown. His emotions poured more clearly onto the page now. But even more than that, something inside him had begun to settle. He didn't feel like an outsider anymore. Not all the time, anyway. but not everyone in the school shared that warmth. "Oh, look who finally joined," a voice whispered near him. Rami kept drawing. He knew that voice. Nate. The son of a wealthy artist, Nate wore expensive boots and always carried a golden fountain pen. He wasn't cruel, just quietly cutting. The kind that smiled as he insulted you. "You know," Nate said as he passed by, "some of us earned our place here, others just got lucky." Rami didn't answer. He just kept sketching. But the words sank in. Later that evening, Rami sat alone in the cafeteria. His tray was half empty, and his pencil moved quickly over a napkin. It was a habit. Drawing helped him stay grounded. "What's that?" a soft voice asked. He looked up. A girl stood across from him holding a tray. "May I sit here?" she asked. "Yeah, sure," Rami said, pulling his sketchbook closer. "I'm Leah," she said, setting down her tray. "You're Rami, right?" He nodded. "How did you—" "Your sketch of the old man? The one on the notice board last week. I stood there staring at it for 5 minutes. I think it changed something in me." Rami smiled shyly. "Thank you. I just draw what I feel." "You feel a lot," Leah said, smiling. That night, as they walked out of the building together, Leah asked, "Do you ever feel like you're not supposed to be here?" Rami looked at her. "Every day," she nodded. "Me too. But maybe that's why we'll make it." A few weeks later, the school announced the annual showcase, an art exhibition where select students would display their work to collectors, critics, and even film studios looking for visual artists. For most students, it was the biggest opportunity of the year. Keanu called Rami one evening. "I heard about the showcase," he said warmly. "Are you going to submit something?" Rami hesitated. "I don't know. People here, they've trained their whole lives. I'm just—" "Stop right there," Keanu said gently. "You're not just anything. Your voice matters, your work matters, you matter." Rami closed his eyes for a moment, taking in those words. Then he whispered, "I'll try." For days, Rami worked in silence. He skipped breaks, stayed in the studio late. Even when the janitors came to clean, he kept sketching. He poured everything into one large canvas, something he'd never done before. He drew the alley behind the restaurant, the spilled soup, the moment he was fired. But he added something new. Light. A shadowed figure offering a hand. Hope breaking through darkness. His piece wasn't just art. It was memory, pain, and the beginning of healing. On the day of the submission, he carried it with both hands, nervous and sweating. He placed it gently on the easel in the submission room. Nate walked in, glanced at the piece, and chuckled. "You're really putting that up?" Rami looked at him, and for the first time, didn't shrink. "Yeah," he said, "I am." A week passed, then 2. Finally, the list went up on the school's main board. A crowd gathered, buzzing with excitement. Rami walked up, heart pounding, eyes scanning the list. And then, he saw it. Selected, Rami Hassan. Light in the alley, his breath caught. He read it again to be sure, and then a hand touched his shoulder. "You did it," Leah whispered behind him. He turned, smiling, a smile that started in his chest and reached his eyes. He had made it. He was going to the showcase. The night of the exhibition arrived. The gallery was filled with soft lights, polished floors, and murmurs of curiosity. Guests in elegant suits and dresses sipped sparkling drinks and moved between pieces, whispering thoughts. Rami stood by his canvas, wearing his one clean blazer. Beside him was Leah, and in front of him walked in Keanu. He wore no bodyguards, no entourage, just a gentle smile and eyes full of pride. "I wouldn't miss this for the world," he said, stepping forward. Rami's voice cracked. "Thank you. For everything." "No," Keanu said. This is you. I just gave you a nudge. You climbed the mountain." A few collectors paused by Rami's piece. One man, older with sharp glasses, stared at it a long time. "Who's the artist?" he asked. "That would be me," Rami said quietly. This tells A story I recognize. It hurts, but it also heals. I'd like to speak with you about a project. Rami blinked. Me? Yes. You. As the night wore on, more people came. More eyes lingered on his work. Hands were shaken. Names exchanged. Someone asked for a commission. Someone else wanted an interview. Rami's head spun. By the end of the night, he stepped outside into the cool air. He looked up at the stars, just like he had done behind that restaurant on the night he was fired. But this time, something was different. He wasn't alone. He wasn't invisible. He had become seen. And it all began with a sketch on a napkin, and a man who cared enough to stop and ask if he was okay. Headlines and heartbreak. The morning after the showcase, Rami woke up to the buzzing of his phone. At first, he thought it was just his alarm, but the notifications kept flooding in. Messages, emails, and missed calls filled his screen. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Then he saw the first message. "Bro, you're trending. Your art is everywhere." Another message came in. "You made the front page of the City Arts magazine. Check their site." Heart racing, Rami opened the browser. There it was. His sketch, Light in the Alley, displayed boldly beneath a headline. The boy who painted pain into power. Meet Rami Hassan. He stared at it, mouth open. There was a short interview, quotes from guests, and even a photo of him standing beside his artwork. In the comments, strangers were calling him brave, powerful, someone who made them cry. And then his phone rang again. "Hello?" he said, voice still groggy. "Is this Rami Hassan?" a woman asked. "Yes? I'm calling from Silver Glass Studios. Our creative director saw your piece last night. Would you be interested in discussing a collaboration?" Rami nearly dropped the phone. He had no idea what to say. I would be honored, he finally managed. Over the next few days, Rami was swept into a whirlwind. The gallery exhibition had opened doors he never imagined. Small projects came in, companies asking for designs, illustrations, even animation pitches. People wanted to hear his story. His artwork didn't just speak, it shouted. And behind all of it, quiet but always near, was Keanu. He never made it about himself. He never took credit. He simply checked in, offered support, and occasionally brought coffee. "You're doing amazing," he'd say, "but don't forget to rest." Rami would smile, trying to hold it all together. But inside, pressure was building. As the attention grew, so did the expectations. Every new offer came with deadlines. Feedback, revisions, praise, yes, but also judgment. Opinions, criticism. Some people called his art too emotional. Others said he was lucky to be noticed by a celebrity. One night, Rami sat alone at the art school, the clock ticking past midnight. His latest commission sat in front of him untouched. He stared at the blank canvas, frozen. He hadn't drawn anything in 2 days. His hands felt heavy, his mind foggy. He was afraid. What if he couldn't live up to the hype? What if it all disappeared? He looked at his sketchbook, the same one he had carried into the restaurant, the same one Keanu had seen on that cold night. He opened it slowly. Page after page reminded him of his journey. His mother, the soup spill, the alley, and then the light. He closed his eyes, took a breath, picked up the pencil, and started again. A week later, Rami was invited to speak at a small art panel. It was a community event, nothing huge, but he agreed. He thought maybe someone out there needed to hear what he once needed to hear. He stood at the microphone, looking out at the small crowd. "I used to think failure was the end," he began. "I thought dropping a tray in a restaurant meant I was done. But sometimes a failure is just a hidden path to where you were really meant to go." A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. Rami continued. "What changed everything for me wasn't luck. It was kindness. Someone saw me when no one else did. Someone gave me a chance. And I promised him that when it was my turn, I'd do the same." After the event, Rami was heading out when he saw a young boy sitting alone on the steps. The boy looked about 15, thin, with ink-stained hands. "You okay?" Rami asked, sitting beside him. The boy nodded, avoiding eye contact. "What's your name?" Rami asked. "Samir," the boy whispered. "I draw too, but no one ever sees it. My mom says it's a waste of time. She wants me to get a real job." Rami took a deep breath. The words felt like echoes from his past. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small sketch pad. He tore off a blank page and handed it to Samir. "Draw something," Rami said. "Right now?" Samir asked, startled. "Right now." The boy hesitated. Then, with shaky hands, he pulled out a pen and started drawing. After 5 minutes, he showed Rami. It was rough, but it had soul. Rami smiled. "You've got something, don't stop." Samir looked at him, hope flickering in his eyes. "You really think so?" Rami nodded. "I know so." That night, Rami called Keanu. "I did it," he said. "Did what?" Keanu asked. "I passed it on," Rami whispered. Keanu was silent for a moment. Then his voice came through warm and steady. "I'm proud of you." Rami smiled. He didn't know what the future held. Fame might fade. Opportunities might change. But one thing was certain. He was no longer just a struggling waiter. He was a storyteller, an artist, and a light in the alley for someone else now. Betrayal in the spotlight. Rami stood backstage, heart thumping. He was moments away from walking into the biggest moment of his life. A global arts conference had invited him as a guest speaker. The auditorium was packed. Journalists, art directors, students, celebrities. The spotlight was waiting. He took a slow breath and stepped into it. As he approached the stage, the applause rolled over him like a wave. Cameras flashed. The host announced, "From street sketches to global stages, please welcome Rami Hassan." He nodded, adjusted the mic, and began. "3 years ago, I dropped a tray of soup on a stranger's lap. I thought my life was over, but that moment changed everything." Laughter echoed softly. The audience leaned in. He told them about the alley, the sketchbook, Keanu Reeves, the studio, the chance. He ended by saying, "Sometimes a single act of kindness can rewrite someone's whole life. I'm proof." The crowd rose to their feet. After the speech, Rami stepped down, shaking hands and thanking guests. A well-dressed man approached him, holding a card. "I'm Darius," he said smoothly. "I manage major talent, film artists, creative directors, gallery designers. I've followed your rise." "Thank you," Rami replied. "I believe we could take your career even further." "Ever thought about illustrating for major films, fashion campaigns, video games?" Rami hesitated. I'm open, but I'm also still learning." "And growing fast," Darius said. "But growth takes vision, and vision needs strategy. Let me help you get there." He handed over a folder and smiled. "Call me. Don't wait too long. Offers don't stay open forever." Over the next week, Rami kept thinking about Darius's offer. He brought it up when he met Keanu again. They sat in the same studio where it all began, sipping tea. "He sounds ambitious," Keanu said, looking over the folder. "But ask yourself, what matters more to you? Art or image?" Rami nodded slowly. "I guess I want to do both. Make art, and show the world what someone like me can become." Keanu smiled. "Then do it. But protect your truth. Don't let anyone sell your story without your soul." Rami signed with Darius. At first it was thrilling. Exclusive events, international projects, fancy interviews, but soon things began to shift. His name was everywhere, but not his message. Photo shoots replaced sketchbooks. His art was featured in places he never imagined. But the raw emotion, the truth, it faded. One ad had his name under a digital drawing he hadn't even created. He confronted Darius. "This isn't mine," Rami said. "It doesn't matter," Darius replied. "Your name is the brand now. Just smile, Rami." "I didn't come here to be a logo," he muttered. "You came here to win, and this is what winning looks like," Darius snapped. Rami left the meeting with a tight chest. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Leah. "I miss the real you. Are you okay? He stared at it for a long time. He wasn't okay. That night, Rami returned to the alley behind the restaurant. He stood there in silence. Same broken bricks, same rusted fire escape, same light from the lamppost. But he was different now. Or maybe he had lost something along the way. His sketchbook was still in his bag. He pulled it out, and on that cold pavement under the quiet night, he drew again. His hand moved slowly at first, then faster, freer. He didn't care about lines or style. He just felt. He drew himself holding a tray, looking small. Then he drew another figure, reaching out a hand. Then he drew a third, himself now, smiling but standing alone. And finally, he added one more. A crowd surrounding him, clapping, but with their faces turned away. He looked down at the drawing and tears came. Not from sadness, but from remembering. A week later he called Keanu. "Can we meet?" he asked. They met at a quiet diner. Nothing fancy. "I think I forgot who I was," Rami said. Keanu listened patiently. "I signed the contract to be seen. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being me." "You're not the first," Keanu said gently. "The world is loud. It tries to tell you what your worth is. But you've always known. It was never about fame." Rami nodded slowly. "I want to start again, even if it means giving everything up." Keanu smiled. "Then do it. I've walked away from big things too. You'd be surprised what grows when you make space." Rami canceled 3 major deals the next day. Darius exploded. Threats came. Headlines mocked him. Young artist walks away from millions. The sketchbook star burns his own fame. He didn't care. He found an old warehouse on the edge of the city, bought it with the little savings he had, painted the walls white, opened the doors, called it the open sketch. He didn't invite critics or press. He just opened the door for anyone who needed to be seen. Kids came, teens with broken dreams, old men who never had time to draw, mothers who painted while their babies slept in carriers. Rami walked among them, smiling. He wasn't famous anymore, but he was finally home. And for the first time since that soup spilled on the floor, he felt whole again. Full circle, the soft hum of pencils filled the air. Sunlight streamed in through the wide windows of the open sketch, falling gently across the wooden floors. The walls were covered with art, some polished, others raw and simple, all of it real. Rami stood at the front of the room, watching quietly. A little girl sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing a cat with blue wings. Beside her, a teenager sketched a crumbling building with flowers blooming through its cracks. A man in a suit stood in the corner, lost in a canvas of gentle swirls and colors. Every corner of the studio breathed freedom, no judgment, no noise from the outside world, just truth. And that's what Rami had built. One line, one drawing, one broken night at a time. Later that afternoon, he walked outside and sat on the front steps, sipping cheap coffee from a paper cup. The breeze was light. The world for a moment felt quiet. His phone buzzed. It was a message. "Hey, it's me. Leah. Can I come by?" He smiled. "Doors open?" He replied. Half an hour later she appeared, wearing a paint-stained hoodie and carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "I've been following what you're doing," she said, sitting beside him. "This place, it's beautiful." Rami looked at her. "Not as beautiful as seeing you here again." She laughed softly, then handed him the bundle. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a sketch of him standing in front of the studio holding a pencil like a sword. "You made me brave when I was scared," she said. "Now it's my turn." He held the drawing like it was glass. "Thank you." They sat in silence, side by side, watching clouds drift overhead. Weeks passed. The open sketch became more than a studio. It became a movement. Videos of the free art classes spread online. Schools invited Rami to speak. Struggling artists began to email him from different countries, but Rami refused to turn it into a business. He didn't want to sell it or brand it. He wanted it to stay true. One day, while sweeping the studio floor, a voice called from the doorway. "You still do your own cleaning?" Rami turned. Keanu Reeves stood there, smiling. "Always." Rami grinned. They hugged firm and real. "This place is incredible," Keanu said, looking around. "You started it," Rami said. Keanu shook his head. "No, I just handed you a card. You did the rest." Rami looked at him, eyes soft. "Remember what you said to me? That I'd be surprised what grows when I make space?" Keanu nodded. Rami waved a hand around the studio. This grew. Keanu stepped closer to one of the walls and looked at a sketch taped loosely to the surface. It was the alley, a broken tray, a hand reaching out. "This was the moment," he said quietly. Rami nodded. "Yes, the moment everything changed." Keanu turned to him. "You know, people always talk about changing the world with big speeches, big money, big fame. But the biggest change I ever saw came from a pencil and a broken night." Rami smiled. "You want to stay for a class?" "Only if I can draw a dog with 3 eyes," Keanu joked. "You'll fit right in." They laughed, and for a moment, everything felt like a perfect circle. Months later, a large white envelope arrived at Rami's door. The seal read, "City Council of Arts and Culture." He opened it slowly. Inside was a letter and a golden certificate. He read aloud. "In recognition of his service to the community, his commitment to truth through art, and his unwavering compassion, Rami Hassan is hereby awarded the city's highest honor for artistic contribution and human spirit." Rami stared at the paper. He thought about calling Keanu. He thought about his mother. He thought about the alley, the sketchbook, the spilled soup, and the broken pieces of his life that somehow became a masterpiece. He walked into the studio, taped the certificate beside the drawings of children, then picked up his pencil and kept drawing. A year later, at an international summit on youth and mental health, a nervous teenage boy stood in front of a large crowd. He held a sketch of his own and said, "I was lost, but then someone gave me a pencil and told me my story mattered." His name is Rami Hassan, and because of him, I didn't give up. In the back of the room, Rami sat with tears in his eyes, hidden behind a cap, just listening. He didn't need applause. He didn't need spotlights. He had become what he was always meant to be, a light in someone else's dark alley. And on quiet nights when no one was watching, he still opened that old, worn-out sketchbook. The first page was faded, the edges torn, but the line at the bottom was still clear. "You matter. Never forget."